affair-proofing your marriage. Today I want us to focus on how to protect our marriage from affairs. My name is Jongibi Papu, and greetings to all of you. In our last podcast, we actually reflected on how to survive an affair, and the presupposition there, the assumption there is that affairs are not a miracle. They do happen. They are common. When I say common, I don't mean inevitable. I don't mean that it's a matter of when. I mean it's if you go through an episode of an affair, how can you survive that? That's what we looked at last time. And let me emphasize again, we are not saying that affairs are inevitable. That is just a matter of time. That's not what we are saying. But we are saying they are not uncommon. It's not a miracle. It's not impossible. It may be unnecessary, but it is not impossible. So to tag on to what we said last time, we want to see now how do we affair-proof our marriage? How do we protect our marriage from infidelity? Now you've got to agree with me that we don't want to look and even to think about the possibility of our relationship hitting the rocks of infidelity. It cannot happen to us. It happens to others, but not to us. But we have to accept the fact that it does happen. And so because it does happen, we need to be proactive and take steps to protect our marriage from infidelity. If you do nothing in your marriage, it will slide down and deteriorate to a point where you won't be able to identify it. But if you step up, if you stand up and be proactive and find ways and inculcate ways of protecting your marriage, that will make a big difference. Of course, if you go to Google, go to any YouTube and just type affair-proof your marriage, you'll find a lot of advice and a lot of information on that. But I'm just going to give you 4 that to me are not very popular, even as you go through your Google. The first one is, if you want to affair-proof your marriage, if you want to protect your marriage against affairs, infidelity, don't hide the fact that you are a Christian. That's the first part. You must be a public Christian. Don't be a secret agent. Don't be a secret Christian. You must have a public commitment to Christian values and Christian principles. We mustn't be afraid to talk about Christ if you are a Christian. In my experience, these affairs often start at that point where you slide off, at that point where you lose your focus on Christ, at that point where you entertain and compromise your Christian principles. So what am I trying to say? If you are a Christian, be one publicly, be a committed one. Do not be afraid to talk about Christ, because if you're afraid of Christ, you're going to be ashamed of his principles. And when you are exposed to temptations, it will be difficult for you to stand up for what you believe. You remember the story of Joseph when he was confronted with by Mrs. Potiphar? He says, how can I do this evil thing and sin against God? You can't say that if you're afraid of your principles. You can't say that if you do not want to be known as a Christian. Faithfulness to God will improve your faithfulness to your spouse. Unfaithfulness to God will ultimately and inevitably lead to unfaithfulness to your spouse. So let me put it this way. When your spouse begins to show signs of losing his grip on Christ, signs of compromising his Christianity, you can be sure that very soon he will also lose his focus on you. When he begins by showing signs like, I don't feel like going to church. Why should you go to church? I don't feel like returning tithe or giving offering. I don't feel like doing this. What's the point of it? I doubt this and I doubt that. When you see that happening, you can be sure that before long, he will even question whether it is wrong to commit adultery, whether it is right for me to be faithful to you. So what am I trying to say here is, don't hide the fact that you're a Christian. Make it public. I don't mean go stand in the corners and carry banners, but let people know that you're a Christian. Don't be afraid to talk about. Don't conceal your Christian principles. Number 2, don't hide the fact that you are married. Some have wedding rings to show that they are married. Some of us who married before Mandela was released, we may not be carrying or having rings, but let people know that you are married, not only married, but happily married. You must not be afraid to be seen with your spouse in public. There are people who you never see with their spouse in public. The last time he was they may have been in public with the spouse was when they got married, if at all. Maybe they married at night or somewhere in a secret place. But don't be afraid to be seen with your spouse in public. Let people know that you love your spouse. When you create a gap, nature does not allow a vacuum. When you let people see that there is a gap or get the perception that there's a gap between you and your spouse, they'll want to get in. So in other words, I'm not saying this is 100% proof, but this is one of the things you need to do. You cannot be ashamed of your spouse and then say, I will not be unfaithful. You've got to let people know. And if you are not happily married, work on your marriage. Deal with those issues. Deal with those annoying issues. Deal with your grievances in your marriage. Because usually when people don't deal with those grievances, the next thing they see a person and they talk with this person, the colleague or whoever, and it's so nice and they think it would be a best person to have a relationship with, unlike their spouse at home. But it's always easier when there's no commitment. So remember, don't hide the fact that you're married. Try and make sure that you increase the happiness in your marriage. Be seen, commit, work on your marriage, do all you can to increase the contentment in your marriage, satisfaction in your marriage. Number 3, be a proud parent. Commit to your family. It's not a bad idea to have a profile at some time or another of your whole family, your wife and your kids. Let those look at that, see that you are not just a husband, you are not just a man, you are not just a wife, but you are a family man, you are a family woman. You've got children that you love. Talk about your children as much as you can. I'm not saying embarrass them, but let people know that you are a committed parent. Spend time with your children. Invest in their lives. You know, when you invest in the life of your children, even when you are faced with temptations, you think of those kids, you think of your children. Even if there's pressure for you to consider divorce, you think of your children, the ones that you love. And that may even be another resource to give you more ideas on how to improve your relationship. So be a proud parent if you are a parent. I'm not saying you have to have children, but if you are a parent, commit, be part of those of their lives. Because when people are going to be unfaithful, usually they even hide the fact that they've got children. Not only the fact that they are married, but the fact that they have children, they even hide that. Let people know that you have children, and when they call, answer and say, yes, my son. Let people know that you are a proud parent. And lastly, this is the 4th point. I'm just going to give you a quartet here. Love and support your in-laws. Be involved in the lives of your in-laws. Be close. Cultivate a relationship with. I know it may be difficult for some of us, but let your in-laws know that you love them. Take them as your partners. You know, I've noticed when you love your in-laws, it becomes difficult not to love their child, be it the wife or be the husband. So fall in love with your in-laws. Find time to love your in-laws. And usually when a person loves my parents, it makes it easy for me to love that person. Sometimes you may think that our in-laws are our enemies, and so you fight with them and you wish that they would disappear from this world. But why don't you also try having a profile pic with your in-laws? I mean, the closeness to your in-laws helps even your partner to see how committed you are in his life or in her life. And that also protects you against even contemplating things like divorce. Because what are you going to do with your in-laws? You love them. They treat you as their son. As I said, if you love my mother and my father, it's easier for you to love their son. It's easier for you to love their daughter. And so let's make it our priority. Let's make it one of our priorities to find ways. I know what you are saying, that Pastor, you don't know how difficult my in-laws are. But they gave you a partner, they gave you a spouse. They can't be that bad. So find a way to connect with them, find a way to relate to them. And like I say, those are the 4 things. 1, don't hide the fact that you're a Christian. Number 2, don't hide the fact that you're married and happily married. Number 3, let people know that you are not only a parent, but a proud parent. Commit to your family and spend time with your children. Number 4, love and support your in-laws. Makes a big difference, you know. God bless you.